can play hide and seek all you like. But tell me who really can spend all their life just trying to get by. I'm trying to do right. So if I gotta do a little wrong just to make it right, I don't mind. Cause only God can judge me, yeah. He's the only one that knows me.
Okay, Mark, so we've talked a lot about your entry into prison, how you began to establish yourself there, how you survived there, really. But something started to change. It seems like you were looking for something different. And then you found a path to begin to really do something different and change your life. Talk to me about what was happening in you, and we got to talk about the people involved in bringing that change.
Okay. After a while, Mike, seeing, for lack of a better term, the downward spiral that my life was taking while incarcerated, I knew that there had to be a better way. But in knowing that, I knew that there had to be some doing on my part. You know, I had to be motivated. You know, I couldn't wait on somebody else to help me. I had to help myself. And you know, you talked about, you know, coming up through a system where, you know, I was involved on the dark side of prison, the hustling side and the violent side. But I knew deep on the inside, man, that's not who I was. And it was just a matter of me saying, man, it's time to get better, time to do better. I had left one of the more violent prisons that I was at. I think I talked to you earlier about, you know, I didn't want to leave there, man, you know. And that's when change started to take place. I went to another facility, got my college degree, graduated with a 4.0. Still was hustling. You know, change was coming slowly, but surely. I still was hustling, man. I still was flooding the camp with dope. Still was, you know, doing my money laundering and all that kind of thing, racketeering, what they call it in prison. But that wasn't me, man. That was not me, and I knew it. You know, oftentimes you hear people say, well, you know, you can fool a lot of people, but you just have to be true to yourself, and I had to be true to myself. I knew that I was meant to be more, and I knew that I was more. And so with that being said, man, I just started little programs at a time, a program here, a program there. And then I had heard about a program at another facility. And at this time, I was at a place at Craven Correctional. And I'd heard about this place at Albemarle. And I had some friends down there. A lot of times friends, hey, Mark, I'm over here at this prison. Can you put in a transfer? Come. Yeah. And I went to Albemarle. And went to Albemarle Correctional. And as soon as I stepped on the grounds, man, a dude named James Hall, he said, Mark Jenkins on the set, man. He says, gonna be plenty of drugs flowing, and you better watch your women. And I said, oh, no, man. I said, I'm not here for that. You know, I said, I'm trying to do something new with my life, trying to, you know. And so it took me a while. I was there like about 3 or 4 months. And I was around the canteen one day, and I heard some guys talking, you know, about a program that they had here at this facility. I'd heard about the program, but no, this ain't me. I ain't getting involved in this, man. You know, sure enough, I looked into getting into the program. And there was a young lady by the name of Leslie Quick. She was a psychologist there at Albemarle Correctional. I had written her a letter, and we met and we talked. And she said, Mark, I think you'd be a great candidate for the program. And so I went into the program. And one thing about this program, you got to be truthful, which most programs you're trying to do self-help and help yourself, interventive type programs. And that was sort of hard for me, man, you know. So I just sat back for the first, you know, week or two. I listened, still was removed from it. No, this ain't me, you know what I'm saying? I still didn't want to be like in a domestic violence program, you know, that type thing. Yeah. And in this program, you know, they would show movies and challenge us to get in touch with our feelings and emotions.
Now, you're still someone, we got to remember, who came from an environment where you don't air your dirty laundry, right? That, I imagine that's still playing out, even in those moments you're describing right now.
You don't air your dirty laundry, And now I'm in a place, you're going to air it in front of other people. And these are people I hustle with, I sold drugs to. Some seen me, at other prisons in violent situations, not so cool situations.
Yeah.
And so I got to come in here, man, and be vulnerable, to a room full of 20, 25 people.
Yeah. And before you establish yourself not being powerful, not vulnerable. That's how you establish yourself, right?
Yeah,
before.
man.
Yeah.
And so that was difficult. But I tell you, Leslie Quick, and there was another gentleman that was working along with the program, Joe Marinello. They were patient, they were kind, they were understanding, and they didn't, push me or force me or try to rush me into anything. They let me come into my own, come into myself.
Letting the discrepancies of what others think determine my destiny. I felt prevented from life like a vasectomy. The rest of me stands today with my shoulders back and my chest forward, ready to leave a legacy, ready to finally take that step, to prosper, to become who I really am, me.
Boy, you have lost a lot of weight. You look fabulous. It's been a while. Hi. Oh, it's good to see you too. Good to see you too. Yeah. A lot of people that I see in therapy who are bright are often trying to fix themselves and heal themselves, and they think if I could just get enough information, and I can do it indirectly by asking all the right questions, that I can make sense out of what happened and I'll be able to move forward and this won't feel so bad anymore. So I could tell I would get glimmers from Mark. He was very generous in sharing the story about the things he had done. But you always knew that there were secrets. But you never force anyone to do that. But Mark started spending a little more time with me and asking some questions, and helping other people by asking those questions. So I felt like he was behind the scenes, always trying to put the pieces together for himself. And then finally, one day he came in and shared more than asked. And that was an emotional moment for him, and that was sort of a beginning spot, and that was impactful for me. But it's always impactful when someone brings you into their circle and feels vulnerable with you. And it's nice to be a part of that.
But with Leslie, at first it was difficult, because here it is, not just being truthful, a beautiful white female. And here I am, I'm supposed to tell you all my business. But Leslie was so cool, man. She was just so down to earth and, laid back. She said, Mark, talk, that's what I'm here for, to help you. We can get through this. And so I started airing my dirty laundry. And I could see some things. I'm sure her being a psychologist within the prison system, she had heard it all, or so she may have thought. But when I started pouring it on, man, I could see some expressions in her face. She tried to be, neutral,
yeah. But
you could see some things like, oh wow, but she really helped me, and man, I can remember when, after getting toward the end of our therapy, she was saying, now Mark, she says, I want you to understand, you think you got a grip on this, and things are in place right now, but I want you to know that, one day, you feel like things are in place, you tuck them away and you put them away neatly, you're gonna open that door and they're gonna all come tumbling down.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, it's like 2 or 3 things that Leslie shared with me that have stuck with me all these years. And she told me, said, one day you're gonna open that closet where you got things tucked away neat and you think they are, and all the boxes are gonna come tumbling down.
Yeah.
And that happened later on in life.
Yeah.
But Leslie got me to the point where I was in therapy, and she sort of knew, sort of like reputation I had in prison. And my file was accessible to them. Staff could go and look at your file, so I'm sure she knew some things. And once we'd gone through therapy, she said, Mark, she says, you feel like you want to share your story? Huh?
You mean with other people?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm like, oh man, you're talking about me talking in front of, She said, it's no pressure, it's on you if that's something you want to do. And so, yeah, man, I'm dealing with the possibility of sharing my story. I'm dealing with this of, talking with Leslie, and I'm seeing the light. And then I told Leslie one day, I said, Leslie, I said, nobody's gonna believe me. I said, nobody's gonna believe me. I've held it in all this while. And at that time, I had my brother, he was living up in the Charlotte area, Concord, North Carolina. So he came to visit. You know, I go out there, man, I'm running to the visit. I said, man, I just want you to know this is what's going on with me. This is what happened. And I said, man, I'm trying to, you know, get relief from this thing. And I said, I just want you to know. And I said, I shared this with the staff psychologist. I told her that, you know, my sister, I called her name. I said, you know, she molested me. And so I said, I know nobody's gonna believe me. My brother says, why not? He says, I believe you. He says, she did it to me too.
But the turning point was really when he received outside affirmation from his brother. And I could feel the shame start to diminish. And I could feel the energy start to change. Because it's one thing to say it to Miss Quick in therapy, but it's another thing to start to share that story, especially with a family member who's just validated you.
And so that's when I said, well, damn it. I said, okay. You know what I'm saying? I said, okay. I said, at least I got him. Yeah. You know, he knows. And so all this coming together, Leslie's talking about going in and telling your story. And so Mike, like I said, these dudes I hustle with, these are dudes that have seen me in my good and my bad. They didn't see me in my mean times or my laid back times. They didn't see me fighting. So now I got to go in here and expose myself. Yeah. And get down to the morning of where I'm supposed to speak, and I'm getting cold feet. On this particular morning, Oprah Winfrey has on her show, she has professional wide receiver, Lavernius Coles. He played for the New York Jets, and he played for Washington Redskins, and maybe a couple more teams. Mm-hmm. He's telling his story that morning. His mom's husband molested him as a kid. He's got crazy anger issues. He beats a dude up in school almost beyond recognition, and somebody recognized it. That, no, this is more than just this guy, you know, beating this guy up. I got in the same situation in my school. I beat a guy, you know, but nobody recognized it. And he just began to tell his story, man. And Oprah was right there with him and, you know, just supporting him. And I said, you know, if this dude can do this, man, I can do it. You know, Lavernius Coles, the NFL wide receiver, can do this. I can get out here and tell my story.
Wow, not coincidence.
No coincidence, man. Yeah, wow. I go in, Mike, that morning, cotton mouth, scared to death, man, nervous. And so Leslie gets up, introduces me. Y'all, you know, this is Mark. Y'all know him. Yeah, what up? Yeah. And so I share my story. Everybody's quiet. And you know, from being a speaker yourself, you can read an audience when you're up in front of people.
Yes.
Everybody's attentive. They're listening. I share my story about having been, you know, abused and molested. I share a story about a relationship with my mother. And I close out. So Leslie said, Mark, will you take any questions? I said, sure. And so I'll never forget, man, this guy named Reggie, he stands up and he says, do you think what you did was, were you striking out at your mother or your sister? I said, you know what, that's a good, you know, question. I never thought about it like that. Yeah. I said, well, yeah. I said, that's a possibility. And then they just went around, more questions and more questions. We ended, Mike. I'm on the yard. Guys in the class start coming up to me. Hey, Mark, I appreciate that, man. Now I know when I was in the bed with my grandmother, what she did to me was wrong. Another guy comes up, Tony out of Charlotte, little Tony. He said, Mark, he says, man, he says, yeah, the babysitter was keeping me. She put my head up under her shirt and forced me to like manipulate her breasts and suck on her breasts. Another guy told me about his situation in the church. But by me opening up and talking about what had happened with me, man,
yes, sir.
I mean, the floodgates open. And then that's when I realized, okay, it may be some power in sharing.
Yeah.
And that's when the change began to take place. Yeah, this morning I'm on Morganton Road in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Morganton Road runs me into Raleigh Road. And actually, I lived off of Raleigh Road as a kid here in Fayetteville. And for the first time in like, I guess 40 years, because I was 17 when the crime happened, I'm going back to my old neighborhood. I mean, I've been home 13 years, but I've never been back to the old neighborhood. But when I decided to, do this documentary. I thought it would be fitting for me to revisit, my old neighborhood. Curious to see what it looks like now. The house I lived in, the house of my victim. I think I'll ride around a little bit just see what's going on. There was a home where my old girlfriend used to live. She was my childhood sweetheart. I think I'll ride by that house and see what's going on with that house. I'm just anxious. Now, if I had to say, explain or express feelings about it, sure, I'm anxious. I'm going through a gamut of emotions right now. I don't know what to expect. But this will be the first time I've gone back to where I lived and where the crime happened since I was a 17-year-old kid. I'm 57 now, so that's 40 years, man. And so we'll see what's up. We'll see what's up.
Say it takes a village to raise a child. Yeah. It takes a village to raise an adult or to help heal an adult. Right. Tell me a little bit more about the village, your village that you discovered.
Now you're talking about while incarcerated village or?
Yeah, I'm talking like more, because you said that, I think it stuck out before, to me it stood out that you said that, the people in prison became, they were your family, right?
There were guys who, just like things they taught me then, I put into practice now.
Yeah.
Ben Brooks, he's dead. He was like a bigger brother or father figure to me. Willie Rankin, Larry Smith, the Greek, Sonny. Now I think about all these guys, Joe Herman, Schultz, and a lot of these guys were like kingpins, man. I'm serious, real kingpins. I ain't talking about no 1 or 2 ounces. I'm talking about some of these guys that poured into me. They were responsible for all the drugs coming through Charlotte, North Carolina at one time. Yeah. These were kingpin guys. But we had a family, we had a camaraderie, and they just, for whatever reason, man, they believed in me. I don't know what it was they saw in me, but you talk to them now, a lot of them, some of them are out, some of them are dead, but a lot of them will just say, Mark, we just saw, man, you were intelligent and you were smart, and we just wanted to see you keep it in the road, whatever that meant, But yeah, man, those guys were very impactful in my life. Taught me some life lessons. From Ben Brooks right to this day. I remember when we were in a small engine class at Caledonia Farm, and we had a project to build a lawnmower from scratch. So we get the parts, I'm looking at the paper, I'm running to get the teacher. He said, ho, wait, man. I said, what? They call me Youngblood. He said, hell, said, you can read, can't you? I said, yeah. He said, well, let's read this and put the damn lawnmower together. I've never forgotten that. I called Ben to thank him like about 3 years ago because I heard he had gotten out. I figured he would be out, and his wife told me he had passed a cancer, man. But it's some things that those guys taught me. Pete Jarrett, a triple murderer. He helped me make it through college. He taught me algebra. He'll never get out of prison, but I can't forget him. Those are my people, man. I can't turn my back on them. I never forget them.
Yeah. What I appreciate about that is what you're doing right now is really revealing how people, it's just not simple, right? We think of people in the context of the thing that we see. Maybe the context of their crime if they're in prison. Or maybe the context of their job, whatever. But there's so much more to people, right? No one is just this one thing. It is possible to be someone who's done something that's tragic, but to also still have value and to give value to people.
A good person who's made a bad mistake.
That's it.
Done a bad thing. And I don't know if you're open to this because we can't tell it all in this documentary.
Yeah.
But maybe, down the road we could do some lives and I'll allow people to ask questions.
Yeah.
chime in with me and you.
100%.
And we'll answer those questions, man.
Yeah, we should do that, because I think just like when you answered those questions in that room that time after you were telling your story, I think when people hear your story, they're going to have tons of questions and things to share.
I'm open to it. Now, I won't stand being abused.
Yes.
I won't stand that. But I will stand, you can ask questions respectfully.
Yeah. And
I'm going to answer. I'll be transparent and honest. I promise you that, man. I'll do that.
I know you will. Yeah. Okay, Mark. So there's something you said earlier that I don't want to flash past too quickly. You said you got a college degree with a 4.0.
Yeah.
Right? And you'd also said that you were a straight A student.
Yes.
In high school.
I was. Yeah.
Right? So despite where you ended up, pretty sharp.
It
seems.
That's what you want to call it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll call it that.
Yeah.
And so there, I think there's some things.
I still got the transcripts.
Yeah. So you got the papers to prove it, right?
Yeah.
But there's some things that you did. This is while incarcerated that I think would shock a lot of people. And so I think to me it's kind of a carry on, if you will, of what is apparently a really intelligent dude putting those tools to work in an environment and in a way that people wouldn't expect. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. I got my associate's degree, graduated with a 4.0. Went on to pursue my bachelor's. The quarter shy of receiving my bachelor's, they stopped the Pell Grant funding for those who were convicted of first-degree murder, which that was my crime, and then they had other crimes that no longer qualified for the Pell Grant.
Yeah.
So I'm like about 21 hours shy of my bachelor's, but I know what I know. You can't take that away from me, man.
Right.
And other people knew that. Even, man, within my messed up situation in prison, for some reason people would come to me. They want to talk to me about things, want my opinion, and my input. I can recall being at, matter of fact, when I started getting my stuff together, and people saw that, I was on up and up, man, I had staff come to me and ask me, Mark, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And this particular prison, a staff member came to me and says, Mark, I'm going to just be straight up with you. Said, the black staff here are feeling like underappreciated and underrepresented, and we need to do something about it. And you're the man. I said, I'm the man. Yeah. I want you to draw up a lawsuit. Me draw up a lawsuit and me and this staff member, we're pretty tight.
Yeah.
So I'm doing it for him, because any other, to hell with the staff. I don't care nothing about no prison staff, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Him and Leslie quit, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But I said, okay. I said, I'll do it, man. So I go to the prison library. I do my research on affirmative action and quotas. I put together, man, a complaint that, crazy. I sort of surprised myself, and it was factual. Word got around. Nobody knew that I'd orchestrated this. I'd authored it. Not orchestrated, but authored it. And so the white staff members, the word had gotten down to the black staff members that, what y'all trying to do, that ain't nothing. Ain't nothing going on here. And so whoever had it, it was handed over to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, because it goes there first. They get them a chance to settle before it goes any further. Yeah. They said, we don't know who wrote this. They said, this is on point, and y'all better get it taken care of. You need to get it taken care of, because you don't stand a chance in court.
Yeah.
And so my authoring this lawsuit was the reason this facility got a black superintendent. And people never know that it was Mark Jenkins that was responsible. Yeah.
I don't know. That's mind blowing to me. I don't know what people are going to think about that. I think that's mind blowing, because how on earth does the staff come to you, prisoner, to say, hey, we need your help? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you draft up a complaint. That was,
man, and an inmate's word is never anything.
Yeah.
Unless you're telling on somebody now, they'll believe you. Mm-hmm. If I say, Perry's bringing in drugs to somebody, but I can say Perry talked bad about me or cussed me out, oh, get out of here. We don't believe that, you know what I'm saying? But if I'm telling on you, oh yeah, man, word as good as gold. That man, and I befriended a deputy attorney general of the state of North Carolina. Mm-hmm. She was I'd read an article in the paper, and her job was to keep people on death row. That was her job. You fighting your case to get off of death row. Joan Byers' job was to keep you there.
Yeah.
And they had an article, and she had come in. It was something I didn't agree with, and I wrote her, and she wrote me back, and I wrote her back. I said, you know, you're on the outside looking in. How can you tell me?
Yeah.
You know. And then we just went back and forth until she saw my worth, and I saw her worth, and then she began to encourage me. You know, of course, she had access to my crime and my case.
Yes.
And that's when I started telling her, you just never know. You know, you never really know. And she began to encourage me. And I said, well, dog, this is taking a turn. And she encouraged me in school. When I graduated, she said, what do you want for a gift? And me being a nerd, I said, just get me a subscription to National Geographic. She said, no problem. And so she had bought me a subscription to National Geographic. And the last letter I received from her, she says, I'm glad to call you friend. Wow. And that meant a lot to me, man. Yeah, Deputy Attorney General of North Carolina. We're friends right to this day. I came home, I contacted her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, I made it home. Thanks for your encouragement. And she had put me in contact with some pastor friend of hers down here. She went to school with. And I did call him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, man, it was sort of like, yeah.
We are so much further down that road that you were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. When you begin to make this shift. I get the shift that you were looking for when you asked for that transfer.
Yeah.
But the person who was in survival mode back when and doing what you had to do to make it and, you know, running drugs, all that stuff, now to befriending the Deputy
Attorney General of North Carolina, Joan Byers.
Right.
That's her name.
Right.
And we're friends. I'm glad to call her a friend.
Yeah. So that to me, I don't know if we're full circle yet, but that this thing it's coming around to that point where it's a totally different way that you're using what you've been given.
Yeah, rather than in a manipulative way.
Yeah.
You know, my drugs and, you know, all this other stuff, loan sharking. Man, I just decided to be who I'm purposed to be.
Yeah.
And who, you know, I'm supposed to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who are you supposed to be?
And you know, we can use those general terms, who God created me to be. God, nah. I'm supposed to be someone that can live and love, and be loved, respect and be respected. I could probably go on all day with those.
Yeah.
And I deserve peace. I deserve peace of mind, man. I've not had that. Some people, you know, they see me, they think I got it all together. Man, I'm in the car talking to myself all the time.
Yeah.
Trying to rid myself of this stuff, you know. How am I going to deal with this? How am I going to deal with that? And so, yeah, man, I deserve peace. That's what I'm supposed to be, a peaceful person. A person who, people come to me now for, not to settle situations, but for advice, my opinion, my input. I'm supposed to be a person who can build up others, you know, while people are building me, you know. So if you're building me, I ought to be able to build this person up. What you're pouring into me, I ought to be able to pour it into another person.
Yeah.
That's who I'm supposed to be, man.
Yeah. Wow. And you discover who you're supposed to be in a place. I think many people believe that prison is where people go and they're lost.
Yeah.
You found something there.
Yeah. After being lost for so long.
Yeah.
And like I said, the change is on you. You've got to make up your mind, man, this is what I want to do. And just, you got to be honest.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest thing, being honest with myself.
Yeah.
Being honest with myself. And once I did that, man, you know, even like through this program with Leslie Quick, I had to write letters. You know, people I'd wronged and people I'd, you know. And here's one thing I found. A lot of times we're hard on ourselves than those we supposedly wrong, or we have a harsher view of something that happened. I can recall writing 3 or 4 letters. I apologize for doing this. And they didn't see it that way.
Yeah.
And I've been hard on myself all these years, man. You know, I did her this way. I did him this way. I did her this way. You know, no, Mark, we didn't see it like that. You know, and so that was a relief. That was a relief, man. And that just helped me. You know. One situation, one positive situation catapulted me to another one, you know, and that's just what I thrived off of. Now, there were bumps in the road, just like in my freedom, there have been bumps in the road. But, yeah, man, I'm here to stay.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, if we can, at this point, the release when you began to get on the path? Because you've been sentenced to life at this point.
Been sentenced to life plus 2 years.
Yeah. So, but we're sitting right here. So,
yeah.
How did that happen?
It didn't happen easily, man. I can remember going before the review board at this facility. And I don't know if Leslie remembers me coming to her office after I last met this review board for the last time. It's like they were playing with me. You know, you calling me in here like you're gonna do something you really don't have any intention. You want to pick me apart and tell me I'm not remorseful. And you know, I'm like, I'm remorseful, but you expect me to come in here and shed tears over something that happened 20 odd years ago. Yeah. I said, it's not realistic. I said, but I can tell you that, you know, I was wrong and I'm sorry, you know, but that really wasn't good enough. And so they said, step out the room, come back in. For such and such reasons, they give you all this, we're gonna deny you. I said, okay. And so what I said to them, and I said to the officer, I said, man, let me tell you something. Don't bring me back in here playing with me. I said, now, if y'all want me to do another 20 years, hell, just tell me, I'll do it. But don't, you know, yo-yo me. Yeah. Don't yo-yo me. And during this time, my family had retained a lawyer. He had one time been an interim parole chairman, Charles Cromer, that was his name. And he took my case to help with my release. That took some time. I think I had him about 3 years. I was getting frustrated because I was seeing other people I knew he was representing, and they had a lot of money. And they were just like, phew. I'm saying, hell, man, my money ain't no good. That's what I told him. He said, man, just be patient. I told you, I've got a couple of people on the parole board, and they're against your release, but they're retiring next year. And when they retire, I promise you, sure enough, Juanita Baker and Jewel Dunn, 2 African-American women from Fayetteville, North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. Well, one was from Fayetteville, I think the other was from Raleigh or Wake County. They retired, and he got me moved through the system, man, just as soon as they retired. Because I torn into him, man, because I'm like, you know, I paid you money. And it was a millionaire that he was representing. Man that killed his wife, a messy murder, and had a life sentence. And me and Mr. John, we used to sit on the yard and talk every day. He was, you know, millionaire, sit back with his newspaper and pipe. And he's telling me, yeah, Charles has my case too, and, you know, and I'll be leaving. I'm like, huh, you leaving? That's what I'm saying to myself, you leaving. Yeah. He was representing me before he was representing, but I knew it was a money situation. And so yeah, he got him out, and I raised so much hell, he told me, he said, man, I got you. He said, I got you. And sure enough, Jewel Dunn and Juanita Baker retired. And I think Juanita, since she's deceased, he moved me on through the system. And he moved me through the system, and I got what they call a MAP contract, mutual agreement parole plan. Now, some of those contracts for 12 months, 24 months, you know, 36, 3 years, 4 years. Mine was for 2 years. And so what that means, if in these 2 years that you go by, you know, these parameters set within this MAP contract, we'll see to it that we get you home. And that's what happened. Yeah. I was moved through the system. Eventually, I was promoted to minimum custody. And man, I can remember going to like my first minimum custody facility. I was allowed to walk outside the fence. It was scary. Keep in mind, I'd been for 24 years, because I did 26 years, 2 years in minimum custody. I've been, you know, the gun on me. Yeah. Every time, you know, rovers going around the facility with guns, you know. So to be able to step outside the fence, man, and just like take the trash out or something, you know. I'm like, wow, you know, I was overwhelmed by it. Then eventually, after I'd been in minimum custody for a few months, I was promoted to community service programs where a community volunteer could come in, take me out into the community, and they could take me to church, into their home, and some facilities allowed them to take the inmates shopping. And that was just like keep in mind, when I came to prison, man, Ronald Reagan was president. Okay. Yeah. So now we're coming into where, you know, George Bush is president, but Barack is getting ready to, you know, be president here soon. Yeah. So that's just a change. And so when I come out here, into society. Now, he got me into Walmart. I'm looking at people like what appears to be half dressed to me. That's normal, you know. I'm like, oh, you know. I remember him taking me into like a Burger King or McDonald's. Years ago, Mike, you used to go in and sit down and they would bring your drinks to you. They didn't have where you self-serve. So I'm sitting here. I'm sitting in the McDonald's or wherever we were, Burger King. I know it's fast food. And Ben is like, hell, Mark, you go get up, go get your drink. He didn't know that I didn't know. I'm just sitting there, man.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. But Ben, he was my community volunteer guy.
Well, Ben could easily put himself in the shoes of the inmates because he at one time had been an inmate. And after he accepted the Lord as his Savior, he was just drawn to this ministry. And starting out with one of his buddies growing up, and then down through the inmates and the times working in the jail ministry, we came in contact with Mark.
And Ben taught me so much, man. He's dead now. But Ben taught me so much. Took me into his home with his wife, his grandchildren, their children, man. They loved on me. And I made some mistakes. You know, they covered me. And to this day, you know, I love on his wife. I love on his daughters. I love on his grandchildren. And when I get a chance, I'm up that way. I go to check on them.
Yeah.
Because they were very instrumental in my preparation for freedom, man. You know, I think, Susan, I think about when I used to come over your house and we'd be over there and we'd have like little functions at the church, but before, you know, we'd go to the church, you know, we'd be at the house and Ben be showing me things how to cook. I still cook the North Carolina style coleslaw. Ben taught me with the tomatoes and all of that. Yeah. And Ben taught me that, and it's a hit down in Augusta.
Yeah.
It's a hit. And I remember one day, Ben and I were sitting like in the living room, and you came in, there was a fall festival at the church, and you came in and there was some stuff you needed out the garden or something done, and you came in there, you said, Ben, I asked you to go in, I asked you to get the stuff and get it out the garden or get something straight in the garden, and you said, now you go out there and do what I asked you to do. And me and Ben were just sitting there looking at each other, and he says to me, he says, Mark, you heard her, come on, man. Come on, let's go out here in the garden. And I looked at Ben. I said, hell, she was talking to you. She wasn't talking to me. He said, you better get your so-and-so out here. And so him and I, we went out in the garden. And whatever it was you had asked us to do, we went out to do it. But man, that's just like one of the things I remember about him. He was just so, down to earth and loving, but he loved to have fun.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Oh, man, I miss him. And he was like my first, coming back into society. Ben taught me like the things that a father or a big brother would teach a person. How to tie my tie.
Yeah.
And like people see me grill, people see me cook. A lot of that came from Ben. A lot of that came from Ben. A lot of stuff I do when I cook or when I'm in the kitchen, a lot of that came from Ben. And so, when I heard about him passing, even I heard about him falling off the ladder.
Yeah.
I just, I came up here. You remember I came up to see him and check on him. And we were together. And then Jesslyn, she had posted on Facebook, about him passing. And that just devastated me. I had like some things going on with some clients. I like about 3 contracts going on at that time. And I called all of them. I said, look, this guy, he's just like family to me. I said, if y'all would just work with me where I could just leave and go to Rockwell, North Carolina, just for a couple of days, could y'all? And they said, Mark, we understand. So I shut down my shop, I shut down my studio, and I immediately got on the road and I came up here. And I remember sitting in a funeral home, it was just me and Ben.
And I was just telling him how much I love him, how much I appreciate him, and how much, you know, he was long suffering with me. He just always, you know, he was long suffering, and he offered great godly counsel. And I'll never forget him. I'll take it to the grave with me. And I just appreciate you for allowing him to be a part of my life, and I appreciate you for being in my life, you know.
Well, it's what God wanted us to do.
Yeah. You know, people have a tendency to, because somebody votes this way or somebody votes this way, somebody's a Republican, somebody's a, nah. It's about the love that you have for a person. And I saw that in this family. Yeah, they're Republicans. They love me, man. They love me. His wife, she loves me. Ain't no doubt.
Yeah.
You know, can't nobody tell me, because I know what they've done for me.
Yes.
I can remember Ben standing beside me, man. I didn't know anything about tying a tie. Ben taught me how to tie a tie, you know. Just little things like that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And Ben was an ex-Klansman. Ain't that something, man?
Wow.
Ben was an ex-Klansman that changed his life, giving his life to Christ, man. And he really took an interest in my well-being.
Yeah.
And I was so glad that I was able to get out and come back and visit him before he died, you know, and just we do some things together.
Yeah, that is remarkable. It is amazing how one person who chooses to change their life and chooses to step into somebody else's, how many lives and people that impacts down the road.
And when y'all see me doing this old coleslaw, this old dish that I be doing with the tomatoes and all that, Ben taught me all that.
Okay, well, you know, I don't know if I can get with you on the coleslaw, but
Ben taught me so much, man. I mean,
yes,
cooking
sir.
and all that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That is awesome.
Yeah.
So, after you got out, let's talk about what you found, because you talk about as you began to be exposed to the world, you're beginning to see how things had changed so much in basically a generation where you were locked up.
Okay, so I'm getting ready to come home.
Yeah, so you get ready to come home, and you know, you are now re-engaging with the family and all that. Tell me what you discovered.
Okay, I'm getting ready to come home, and I didn't know how politics were out here. I mean, I watched the news, but I did not know that politics were as divisive as they are out here. As a matter of fact, I came home that December of 2008. Barack was elected the November of 2008 on my birthday. You go back and look up that Tuesday, November the 4th. Barack Obama was elected on my birthday. And so I sense a little something within the system, you know, but nothing major. The main thing I remember about that was John McCain. You know, people were trying to, you meant John said, nah, get out of here. He won fair and square. I ain't trying to hear that. You know, that's what I remember about that election. John McCain wouldn't feed into it. He wouldn't drink the Kool-Aid. And so I had no idea things were as tense about politics like they were. I came home, had a friend, she says, you can go down here and get a job. They're looking for people. I went down to WBPI, Channel 36, Miss Dorothy.
Oh yeah, over in North Augusta.
North Augusta. Yes. They gave me a job there. I was working there a couple weeks. Met my then wife, met my wife. I only stayed there a couple weeks because another job opportunity came. I got a job working at Plant Vogel, and it may not sound like a lot of money to people listening, but coming out of prison after having served 26 years, I was making about $55,000, $56,000. So that was pretty decent money for me. And so things seem to be going well. I married, got married after being out 6 months. And beautiful home, beautiful wife, children. And here's what I said, Mike. I said, I'm going to leave all this prison stuff in prison. I'm going to trust people. I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt. And that's what I did. And so I came home, let my guard down, man. And I'm at work one day and I get a call. You need to come get me. They're locking me up, and it's my ex. She's calling me. And that was just the start of like a downward spiral for me. My wife wasn't who she said she was. She had a hidden past, and it had caught up with her.
Oh man, so you decided you're gonna trust people and you're gonna benefit of the doubt, but you didn't expect that This is going to begin to play out at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm not going to bash my ex-wife, but I'm going to tell the truth. I'm not going to bash her. But it's just, she wasn't who she said she was. She had a past that she'd hidden from me. And that just caused me, man, it caused me to, that coupled with one or more things that had happened within the family. I said, okay, this is what y'all want. I'm trying to come out here on the up and up and be straight up with you, but you want game, I'm gonna show you game. And that's when I just, I went crazy, man. I was wilding out, just to tell you the truth. Wilding out from this relationship to that relationship, just unhealthy relationships. And all the while I kept a lot of this from Miss Quick, because we still talk, we talk on the phone, but I wouldn't tell Leslie.
Yeah, because this is the moment she talked about where all those things that you put neatly away were going to begin to
let me tell you,
crumble.
I called her. Can I be straight up with you? I'm up in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'm visiting one of my relatives where he lived in Boiling Springs, and I had the wife of somebody else with me. I'd been over his house, and I told her, I said, you can't go with me. This was the wife of a high official in the parole and probation department in Richmond County. And so I come back, and she's drunk in the hotel room. She's trying to leave the room naked. And I'm like, no, you can't do this. You can't, I want to go, and just crazy. And so I get her to go in the restroom, and I get her quieted down in the restroom, and I go back in the main room. And I'm like, Mark, what in the hell are you doing, man? What are you doing? What's going on? And I called Leslie. And Leslie sensed something. She's like, Mark, are you okay? Are you okay? And I just started telling Leslie, I said, Leslie, you remember you told me, I said, they fallen. I told her about my marriage, how my wife had done, about her, I told her what I was doing, like right then. And, she was non-judgmental. That's my dog, man. Non-judgmental, just what can we do to make it right?
Yeah.
And what can we do to help? And that's what it was, man. And that's how Leslie has always been. And I'm not talking about just only with me. She's been that way with everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had something in that moment when it began to unravel, right? That in the past you didn't have.
I had somebody.
Yeah.
Just have to take advantage of it.
That's right.
It's a resource, man. I had to use it. And that's what I do right today. I talk to you. I talk to Leslie. And then I have another friend I talk with. I respect her views and her opinions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's important for people to hear.
Yeah.
Because you don't need a whole lot of people. Need somebody. There's one thing you got to clear up for me.
Okay.
Because you've had a lot to say about the church, about hypocrisy, and about people being one thing maybe, or saying one thing being another. And so I might assume that you'd have nothing to do with the church, but I met you more or less through the church.
Yeah.
And I know that you're involved even now.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, man, actually prior to me transferring to Albemarle Correctional, where I'd met Leslie and went into this program, I was at another facility, Craven Correctional. A lot of great memories there, man. What I consider one of my greatest accomplishments at Craven was I taught GED. And there was a guy who just felt like he could not get his GED. He'd come into the dormitory shaking his head, man. I said, what's going on? He said, man, I flunked it again. He'd flunked like 3 or 4 times getting his GED. But to make a long story short, after working with me, and I told him, I said, if you just listen to me, man, I said, I can help you get your GED. And just when he went and tested and came back into the dormitory and hugged me, he was just, Mark, I got it. That feeling, I'd love to teach GED forever if I could get that response, you know what I mean? But Craven was a place where I've got a lot of good memories, and I played for a band there. I played bass guitar.
Okay.
And
were you any good, Mark? I'm just kidding.
I was decent, man.
Okay.
I wasn't. I could fill in. Like if the main man wasn't there, I could come in and fill in.
Keep us on track.
Yeah, I wasn't all that. But I played in a band there, and I also played in the church band.
Mark.
What's going on, bro? How you doing? Yeah. Good to see you, bro. Oh, good to see you, man. Oh. Slimming down too.
What's going on?
Oh, man. Oh, good to see you, boy. Good. Great. You looking good, man. How y'all doing? Hey, LA is here and Kenny's on his way. We up in Salisbury, man. We just together. We going on. I was friends with there was a guy named Kenny. He's the nephew of John P. Key, the gospel artist. John P. Key. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Kenny and I were tight. And he taught me into coming in, playing in the band, and playing. We had a secular band, and we also had like a church band. And so that means I had to be in service. Yeah. You know, I had to be in service, and so this one particular morning, I went to the service, and this service everybody hated to go to. The guy, he was like, he spoke in this like dead voice, and there was really nothing there. You know, I ain't for all that hooping and hollering, but I'm just saying, don't let me fall asleep on it. But he said what he had to say, and then he gave his altar call. And I'm sitting here, and I'm telling you now, something's going on with me. I can't even describe what it is, but something's going on. And he says, there's somebody in here. He starts calling about, you're going through this, you're going through, you know how they, yeah. All right. And so I'm sitting there, and people are going up. He said, there's still one more. And he says, I'm not going to close until you come, you know. And I'm sitting around, you know, I'm sitting around looking, ain't nobody moving. I said, well, hell, I'll go on up here just so he gonna close the service. I go up there. He said, God, I've been waiting on you, Mark. He knew me because, you know, I'm a musician and all that with church. And, man, he prayed with me. And from that moment on, I started being intentional about my faith. So that's where I started, right there at Craven Correctional. I think it was 2001, I think it was. With that, what everybody thought was a boring pastor. Yeah. But that's where I was reintroduced to salvation, and I just started living it, man. You know, I wasn't perfect, but I just started living it. And then once, you know, I was going into the volunteer pastors into the community. I was involved in the church. They knew I could sing. They knew I could play the guitar, and they'd have me play in the church or sing in the church. And then me and my friends, you know, we put on concerts, we put on gospel concerts. Yeah. And Kenny was a hell of a leader, man. This guy, John P. Key's nephew, this dude, you know, he's a bass player and a keyboardist. He's an awesome guy. Yeah. And I owe a lot to them. Yeah.
Wow. So you're building a lot of things as you're going through this process. You're building a lot of things at that point in adulthood, in prison, that normally you would hope are built when you're 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, 10 years old. You're rebuilding something totally different. Yeah, amazing.
And Mike, it's, you know, I just got to be transparent. Yeah, a lot of crying nights, man. Because just what you said, I knew this. Yeah. I knew it was supposed to happen out there and not in here, you know, while incarcerated. But I just had to get it, you know, while I could, you know. And I can look back over my life and I can see where people were strategically planted. That's why I know it's a God, you know. A lot of the stuff they out here talking, I don't feed into that, but I know him for myself, and I know how he has manifested himself in my life and in the lives of other people who have been, you know, in contact with me.
Yeah. Wow, thank you for that. That's profound. It's powerful. Yeah. You were released, obviously, and whenever somebody is released from incarceration, there's a transition getting back into the world, so to speak, and so you went back home.
Yes.
You walked out of one environment. Tell me what you walked back into when you got home.
For a limited amount of time, I walked back into a welcoming environment. Glad to have you home. But after a while, man, I just started noticing the same thing that I left. You know, the religion, overwhelming, television, staying on TVN all day. You know, But I was witnessing the same anger, seriously, the same attitude. And I can recall being at that house, and my nieces, my great nieces, were staying there. Waking up some mornings, that's all you heard was like fussing. Not them at her, but her fussing at them, my mother fussing at them. One of my nieces, man, well, both of them are precious, but I don't know who she reminded my mother of, but she caught the brunt of it. I mean, she was fat, stupid, dumb, you know, making her take pants off, cutting them up, throwing them in the trash can, or taking clothes off because she felt like they were too tight. You know, just all this crazy stuff. And now these same young ladies are in counseling at the church where my mother goes, where my mother tithes, where my mother's friends with the pastor, where my mother, you know, is buying equipment for the church. They're talking to the pastor. They're talking to these counselors, or supposedly counselors. You know, you got a lot of people trying to counsel. They ain't qualified. They think because you read the Bible, you can counsel. Not so. And nothing's changing, man. Nothing's changing. I can tell, you know, they're siding with my mother. You know. And so that's why, I you know, often you hear me talk about the misuse. Honor your mother and father. But they're dogging you out, and it's nothing you can say. They're calling you names. They're talking to you in this inappropriate way. And as a kid, you don't have any say-so. People are seeing this in my family. Not one person is standing up. Not one person. And I can remember there was a chaplain when I was incarcerated. He said, God is preparing men like you in here, because when you go out there, you're to make a difference. Chaplain John Pierce told me that. And he said that to a group of us. He said, you're going to be capable and you're going to be assigned to do things that other men out there aren't doing. And so that's where I see myself. Of course, you know, I'm going to lose some family over this. Hell, man, I don't know if I told you, you know, I sit on boards. I've sat on boards around here. So people may say, well, Mark, we got to distance ourselves from you because, you know, they didn't know this part of my life. But I'm cool with that, man. Am I scared in doing this? Yeah, I'm scared. My business may take a plunge. I lose my business. But I'm more scared, man, not to say anything, not to do anything. That if I die and take all this to the grave with me, it'll just be another secret. And it'll continue in my family. I can't do that, Mike. I'm not, that's not how I'm built. All my life I've confronted, you know, lies. I've confronted, you know, hypocrisy. I can't be that. I can't be a liar. Man. I can't be a hypocrite, man.
I often tell people, it's very simple, but I tell them, you know, nothing changes until something changes. And you know, in the church, you often hear people talk about generational curses. In the clinic, maybe you hear people talk about maladaptive patterns of behavior. Whatever we call it, that's what happens, right? People grow up in a certain way of living and they continue on that way and they pass it on. And next thing you know, this generation looks a lot like the last. And so it sounds like you are that disruptive force that, well, something will change. And we don't know exactly what that will be.
And it has, Mike, let me say this, it hasn't been easy, man, because a lot of stuff I've had to navigate alone. I didn't have a male figure. You know, Mark, this is what you need to do. I had trial and error, so I messed up. I can recall like my mother coming up to visit me. You know, brother so-and-so said they're praying for you. They're doing this for you. And then I come home, I ain't seen one of them. I've been home almost 14 years. You know, December will be 14 years. Not one of them have come to say, hey man, let's go get a burger. Let's go talk. Not one. And hell, to me, they're cowards. I know you, Mark. Cowards, man.
Well, you know, I might say, well, Mark, how do you know?
My feelings. My feelings. They're cowardly men.
Because
they said one thing and led, you know, my family to believe that they would be there for me. But when I came home, it was a different story. It was a different story. And so that's why I find myself now when people come to me and say, you know, I got a son who's this. Let me see him. Bring him by the studio. Where can I meet him? Because I know the importance of that. Somebody who has overcome. Luke chapter, I think 22. Y'all can back check it up. You know, Jesus is in a dialogue with Peter. Peter, you know, Satan has desired to sift you as wheat. You know, he says, I pray for you that your strength will not fail. And when you've overcome, you know, you go strengthen your brother.
Yeah.
So that's why I see myself right now. I've overcome some things, and I want to strengthen my brother. Yeah. That's how I use religion. That's how I use my relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yes.
You know? Not all this other stuff, man. Photo ops and all this crazy stuff. And my life, the things that I do, you know,
That's good. That's good, because I think a lot of times people, and even you, what you're describing is people will connect or reconnect with Christ, but it requires some bridge along the way.
Mm-hmm.
It requires people to fill in the gap and to help to connect you to something other than all the things that are just swirling in here. It helps you to connect and to see love. And I think the word says that no greater love is there than, you know, someone who give up their life for a friend.
Yeah.
What you're describing, like whatever the consequences, I'm gonna do it. That's kind of what that is.
Yeah.
That's love.
Yeah. And it's like I said, man, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
But man, my support, and I'm praying one day. I'm and I don't hear voices from God like, oh, the Lord told me this. No, but I really do believe this was impressed upon me by God. I'm like, God, you know, why did this have to happen to me, man? I'm a good student, this and this. Then my life took this turn, you know, sexually assaulted, abused in this manner, and go to prison and all of this. And now look at me, man. I could have been first Barack. You know, I could have been a senator. I could have been, you know what I'm saying? And man, just out of nowhere, it just came to me. I put you through it, or allowed you to go through it. I didn't put you through it. I allowed you to go through it because you were capable of handling it and coming back to tell your story.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, that's what I got to accept. Now I'll accept it. Hell, I don't want to. But if that's what I've got to accept, man.
Yes.
If some good can come out of this, and people know. And you know, you've heard me talk throughout. Now I'm not anti-religion. I'm telling you, I'm looking in the camera, telling you God is real, God is love. But I think it's misinterpreted. I think so many, you know, different interpretations of who God is and what God is about is sort of like what got me off course, you know. But God is love, man, and He's real. I want you to know that.
Yeah,
That's
thank
true.
you. That's good. I mean, I think a lot of people, will be selective about the pieces that they take versus really applying that, right?
Yeah.
We will often use the word more as a weapon, or like you said, a tool sometimes to get people to do what we want them to do.
There you go. Yeah.
But the word really, I mean, it cuts through you. It should, right? And so I think that's difficult because a lot of people come up where it's about the routine. It's about the quote unquote religiosity of the process and quoting things, but not necessarily applying them. So I'm glad you come to a place where you're trying to practically apply what you know about God. And so we often say things like, you know, you can't pour from an empty vessel, or, you know, you basically get out what you put in. I'm just wondering, in terms of how you feel about her, I do want to know how you feel about her right now, and if you account for what was poured into her. Was she even equipped to create something different?
I'll start from the back of the question and lead up to the front.
Yeah.
Equipped. Being young, I thought she was equipped. You know, as you get older, you say, well, she didn't know what she was talking about. You know, that was wrong. That was wrong. With being young, I looked up to my mother out of allegiance because what had been programmed into me.
Sure.
And you're asking how I feel about her now. I feel there's an obligation for me to be there because she's my mother, and I'm going to be there. But just to say I had this crazy love, I love my mother.
Yeah.
But just I jump for joy when I see her or anything, no, I don't. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. And I want to feel the other way.
Yeah.
I want to, oh, Mom, and when I get ready to leave, I love you, Mom. We hang up the phone, I love you. But she has her part that she has to play in that also. We can't, you know, it's just, I can't refer to my past and not be willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In order to seek help, like I'm seeking help now.
Yeah.
She's going to have to be willing to do the same thing. I think we discussed earlier, you know, she said she could write a book, but a lot of people would be hurt.
Yeah.
But we need to know while you're living. Let's talk. As a family, let's talk. And I don't mean any harm. I want professionals. I don't want pastors at the table. I don't want preachers. I want professional. Because, tell you the truth, people gonna get, hell, prayer ain't work. I mean, you're seeing what prayer has done. It's gotten us nowhere. Going to church 3-4 times a week ain't got the family nowhere. I got, Mike, I can tell you stuff still going on in the family. Stuff I was doing. Male relatives holding knives to women's throat.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they're going to church. They praying now.
Yeah.
So
what? Okay. So if you allow me, I want to push back just a little bit with the question, because what you just described, Leslie Quick, the church band, the assistant attorney general, all these people who've somehow been placed along the path. Who was praying for you along the way?
People in the church and my mother. People in the church, supposedly.
Yeah.
So that's where and this sort of like going off tangent a little bit.
Yeah.
That's where I sort of, you talk about people praying for me, and but a lot of it, man, I pray for myself.
Yeah.
And I would tell people that, because I see people on Facebook, pray for me. Man, pray for yourself. Lay hands on yourself. You got that power.
Yeah.
The same power that was given to Jesus Christ was given to you.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say their prayers didn't make any difference. I appreciate them. But man, I did some crying and praying for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure my mother prayed, but you don't create the monster. Come to the monster's rescue, and then expect just to, you did this and you did that. Nah, I didn't get away with what I did. You need to come clean with what you're responsible for. Let's talk about it. Let's get healing in our family, and man, let's move forward.
Yeah.
It's possible. I know it's possible.
It's possible. I think there's a lot more there for them and for you to unpack a little bit, or a lot. So I think there's a lot to unpack. So, and we're kind of into it now, but I'll just ask you specifically, what do you hope will come out of this? Because as you said, some people's eyes are going to be open to things that they're not open to. Some people will feel like they've been exposed, right? What do you hope will come out of this?
Mike, what I really would love to come out of this, man, just to have a family, as I would like to have a family that's loving, a family that's genuine in their care and concern for each other. I'd like to see my niece in school, and I'm not even asking a lot for myself, man. It's for my family and others. Of course, by me coming out with my story like this, I stand to whatever. But like I said, I've counted the cost in that. I talked with my daughter about it, man. And we didn't get a chance to talk about my daughter and grandchildren. She's my daughter through my marriage. She's my stepdaughter, but we're like, And through her, I got beautiful grandchildren. Through my stepson, I got beautiful granddaughter. Yeah, I would do it. But I would have to be in a place that I would want, it's so congested, I would want competition. I don't want to be competing against nobody. Because I know like around... Nope. Okay.
DJ, you want to get a bubble bath? Nope. Make bubbles? Nope. You going to wait till Daddy get home?
My mom met him, I want to say maybe 2008, 2009. And I think they got married in 2009. At first, when I first met Mark, I was like, well, who is this man? I don't know who he is. The typical teenager. But over the years, unfortunately, my mom and him separated. They got a divorce in the year 2013. And that actually what helped our relationship, like me get to know Mark for myself. And of course, around that time, I also had our first child, Ava, and he just really became like that essential piece, like as far as being a great support to me and my child, and also my husband. And no matter what I needed, or even it just being that voice of reason, sometimes he didn't even know sometimes when I will be feeling some type of way, or I felt like, you know, down about a void or something, he would say something and made me feel like that I really do have another support person in my life as a father figure, you know. And that's why I love to call him like he's my bonus dad, because he really filling that gap as far as to what a daughter would ask for in a father.
I would say with me, the first time I met Mark, I want to say I came home with V to Augusta, to our house one day. It was just a handshake. That's all it really was. But it really started to pick up once our oldest child, Ava, was born. Mm-hmm. Once she was born, he kind of took ownership of being a grandfather. Like, right. We went nowhere telling him no. Yeah. I'm going to be a grandfather. And it could, you know, and again, after watching the first part of the video, it makes sense to me now where he doesn't have children. He didn't have that part, and that part is missing. So this was a chance for him to make up for that missing time, and he's doing a great job with it, because since 2013, mm-hmm. He came into their life and has not left. Mm-hmm. And when I say has not left, outside of probably me and my wife, he's been probably the most dependable person, like mm-hmm. right there with him.
And the most supportive to our children, like whatever it is, like the smallest thing, even if it's Grandparents' Day, he coming 2 hours away to be here. Mm-hmm.
So once 2013 happened, Ava was born, that kind of cemented our relationship, because he was here all the time with the kids. We couldn't tell him no. The kids kind of created that relationship with him, because mm-hmm. even at that time, I still didn't really know him. But once our kids created a relationship with him, I couldn't pull them away from him. Mm-hmm. And then within that, I started to actually get to know him myself. Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, you know what, I really like him. Mm-hmm. Hey, that's Pawpaw. Mm-hmm. So from that point on, it kind of just, our relationship just continued to grow. We continued to learn each other, and that's where we're at now.
But man, I was blessed with wonderful babies. You've seen them. Yeah. I was blessed with wonderful grandchildren. I hope that if my family, my biological family, does not want to, come on board, I can just take what I know and what I've learned and my resources and start pouring them to somebody who will listen. Somebody who wants to. I can remember, man, just like every Christmas in the house since I've been home, it's just been a mess. Mm-hmm. Invite people over, and then my mom start fussing. Get out of the kitchen, And so here's what I said. I said, if this happens one more damn time, I won't spend another Christmas here. Mm-hmm. 5 or 6 years ago, that happened. She'd invite everybody over and then get mad at them. Mm-hmm. Get out of crazy. And I said, man, this is not how Christmas is supposed to be. Yeah. So my last 5 or 6 Christmases, I spent at my daughter's house with her and her husband and the children. That's how I spend Christmas. It's peaceful. Yes. That's what I want. I want peace, man. Yeah. And that's what I deserve. I deserve peace. Yeah. And I have a business. I wish for my business to thrive, but if my business plunges, I'm cool with that too, man. Yeah. I like nothing more than to go back into the prison system. Mm-hmm. I talked with you about that. Yes. Into the school system with the young boys, man. And it's a lot of possibilities out there. Yeah, yeah. But I hope that somebody can see themselves in what I'm talking about, and let's dialogue, let's talk. And I'm going to point them to some help in the end credits of this. They'll see some help with sexual abuse. I partner with a couple of organizations, and I have that info up there, and they'll be able to go in and get some help. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that lives are going to change because you were courageous enough to take a step and to tell a story that perhaps most people wouldn't tell. Lives will change that people you never see. Generations will change. And so I appreciate your courage in stepping out and coming out of the shadows and airing that laundry, because ironically enough, that's what cleans it up. Okay. So I appreciate you for that. Thank you for your courage. And thank you for your care enough to do this.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you and you traveling up and down the highways.
Yes, sir.
You didn't have to do it. And I tried to pay you. You didn't want me to pay you. And I paid you something. You want to give me the money back. And I knew you were genuine. I knew you were genuine. I knew that I could talk with you. I'm very particular about, in whom I confide, man, because People talking about they got trust issues. Hell, you ain't got no trust issues until you sat down and talked to Mark Jenkins. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so being able just to talk to you, and it started with you and your wife, Wendy, in my studio. And I love you. I love Wendy, and I thank you.
Yeah.
I thank you, man, for encouraging me. Wendy was our cheerleader when we were in the studio talking. And it's just a lot more people who come to mind. And my young friend, Victor, you know, who's filming a lot of this. He's traveled up and down the highways with me.
Yeah.
Not scared. You know, he's just, you know, and that's one thing. If you're scared to be around me and all that, I don't need you. I don't want your friendship. If you can't look at me on an even keel as you, see me as your equal, nah, I don't need you. I'm good. I'm not concerned about those who are going to, you know, lambaste me. I'm concerned about the ones I have here.
Yes.
You know, in my circle, the Michael Perrys, the Lynthia Rosses, you know, those people, man, who pour into me, who see my worth and they treat me as so, you know. My pastor at Chosen, Unique Mackey, who always encouraging me, and he get up under my skin sometime, and
of course,
and he get up under my skin now, but that's my boy, man, and I'm gonna be with him until I die. I gave him my word, you know, and the culture I come from.
Yes,
I give you my word. I'm bonded by that, and so all of these people, man, the chief of police, Charles Barranco over in Aiken, South Carolina. I count him a friend.
Yeah.
These guys know about my past. Jennifer Minikin, Amy McDougal. You know, these people were in the Aiken County public school system who encourage me, man. They support me right to this day. And I thank them all. I thank them all. And you said it takes a village. And not just in raising a child, but sometimes in helping an adult along the way, because I'm looking in the camera. This is hard. I want y'all to know that this is hard, man. It's not easy. But I hope that by me being transparent, that it becomes easier. Yeah. And you all will see that, you know, I need help, man. It's hard to do this by myself. It's hard. But I need your help. I need your love. I don't need your judgment. I don't mind you asking questions. I don't mind that. But I need love right now, and I need support. And hell, I may need a family when this is all over. I may need a family when this is all over. Well, and so, but hopefully not. Hopefully my family will come on board. But if they don't, man, I'm not gonna die alone. You know, I want a wife again. You know, a healthy relationship, and that's what I ask of people. You know, don't be judgmental of her. You know, help us. You know, encourage us.
Well, I think you have a family, and I think you rattled off a bunch of names of people that would consider you family right now. And so I'm honored to be on that list. Yeah. And I'm honored that you chose me to do this. Yeah. So, you know, could have been a lot of people. So I appreciate that. Okay. Yeah. But I think just as you told your story that day when Leslie invited you to tell your story, what happened in that room, it's going to happen in a lot of rooms. Because of what you've done.
Always remember the adversity you're going through at any given moment, because it will be somebody's survival guide tomorrow. And knowing that Mark was putting this together to share his story to help the next person, it just seemed to all fit and come together.
I'm so glad God gave me another chance. I'm so glad God gave